Just checking this. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So, hello everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining this workshop on reference economic model for airborne wind energy systems. I am Rishikesh Joshi, a PhD researcher at TU Delft, and I'm conducting this workshop together with Filippo Trevisi, who is in the meeting, you may know, also a PhD researcher at Polimi, and Christian Patrick, who is Secretary General in Airborne Wind Europe. Well, I thank the Airborne Wind Europe team, that is Christian, Stephanie, and yes, is actually who helped us organize this workshop. So yeah, thank you for joining. Let us begin. So to start, I would first maybe tell you a bit agenda. So I will start with giving you some context, then the objectives that we have for this effort, and then the methodology that we adopted, then followed by a short demo workshop in which you would know how can you be part of this effort, and then summarize the workshop with the conclusion and open the floor for questions and discussion. So for some of the people who are new, maybe they don't know, we have this IEA Wind Task number 48, Airborne Wind Energy, which was set up basically for a wider collaboration between the community, mainly industry and academia together. And it has 5 work packages. Work package 1 is resource potential markets, 2 is reference models, tools, metrics, 3 is safety regulation, social acceptance, and AWS architectures. So basically, this effort on reference economic model falls into these 3 work packages primarily because it will help to answer some of the objectives listed within these work packages. For example, in work package 1, we have recommendation on entry markets, airborne wind energy entry markets, which will be really beneficial to have such a model. Then a common definition of metrics and KPIs falls into this, and in AWS architectures, market-specific deployment recommendations, etc. So basically, this type of reference modeling is going to help multiple tasks. More information, you can visit the task page, and this was more of a context for new people in the field. And then the main motivation, why does the airborne wind energy community need a reference economic model? So figure on the left, it shows the 4 main aspects which actually influence the overall design of airborne wind energy systems. And in those 4 aspects, we know that wind resource characterization and performance modeling or estimation is a well-researched or high interest topic, but we don't yet see much work done in terms of estimating system costs or cost modeling or trying to evaluate the value that it can add to the system, etc. And we term both of these aspects, that is system cost and system value, as economic aspects. And basically, we feel that we lack a trustworthy framework which actually is beneficial to guide the design of airborne wind energy systems in the right direction. And we think that there are many benefits to the industry as well as academia to have such a reference economic model. We tried to list a few. I will go through them briefly. So first one, which we think is very important, is benchmark models against the reference. So companies actually can use this model to assess the economic viability of their concepts and compare it against the industry or the reference average that we have in the reference models. And also academia can use this to evaluate the economic viability of their research, ensuring that their assumptions are aligned with the industry. And then another benefit is identify critical economic design drivers. So basically, by employing this model, we would know what are the most important aspects that contribute to the final economics of the technology, which actually eventually matter when you have to go to the market. And by this, we can identify the areas of the technology or the whole system where we have to put in more research effort into. Maybe some aspect of the technology has a huge impact on the final outcome, and hence we need more research. And for now, maybe we are focusing on some aspect that doesn't require that amount of effort. Another is designed for relevant economic metrics. So basically, as part of this effort, we want to define or identify the key relevant metrics that can be used as design objectives for system design. And this can go beyond just cost, so beyond LCOE, and more about this in later slides. Another is this model can be used to make technology development roadmaps for different companies. They can use this model for their own development, identifying the gaps within their technology to the kind of different business cases that they are targeting into. So basically, you can evaluate business cases and find the product market fits for your own system concepts with such a reference economic model. And then another very important aspect is inputs to policymakers or international organizations that are IRENA, IEA, or consultants like BVG. We had one white paper. So basically, if we have this collaborative effort, this model would be more trustworthy and credible to communicate with the outside world. And I think policymakers would be more willing to use this to estimate the projections of the technology. So I think these are more of the high level benefits that we think why we should have a reference economic model. And that's why we are going towards this. So largely used within the conventional wind community. So this slide is mainly to stress the importance of having an economic reference model, because here you see three flowcharts of design optimization frameworks for wind turbines. And these have been heavily used to guide the design of wind turbines as the way you see they are right now. And all of these employ some kind of economic model. So basically, we have to give importance to this. And just to give you some information, the top left is the framework from NREL, known as Wisdom. The top right is called CP Max. It's from Polimi and TU Munich. The bottom, you see the flowchart of the framework known as Window. It's from TU Delft. But basically, this is something that we are lacking in our community, that we don't have such an economic model yet. So this goes to the objectives of our effort. So we have mainly three objectives. Primary objectives is to build a parametric cost model. So in the table, you see how we divide the cost components of airborne wind energy systems. You see that we have divided into kite, tether, ground station, balance of system. And for farm level, so airborne wind energy farms, we like to call it flock. They're flying birds, let's say Aves flock. And basically, it includes all the system components and the balance of plant. So each of these components are divided into subcomponents. You would be able to see the details of this in the report that we will be providing to the participants. But also in the demo where Filippo will show you some of the details of certain subcomponents. But what will this give us is basically enables us to estimate cost of a system, and which eventually leads to estimation of LCOE or other metrics, levelized cost of electricity or other metrics, which leads us to the objective 2 of our effort, that is defining economic design metrics. So as I told you, LCOE is one of the design metrics which currently in the present scenario used heavily by the wind turbine industry to optimize their systems for. But it's rapidly changing, and in future you would see a mix of design metrics that the wind turbines will be designed for, and maybe a combination of metrics, for example, LCOE and LPOE, that is levelized profit of energy or cost of valued energy, so things like that. So I think what we need to do as an industry is we need to learn from wind turbines or the conventional wind community to not just follow them or like use the same metrics, but we need to find our own design metrics that are differentiating airborne wind energy from the conventional wind turbine. So this is one of the objectives of this effort. And yes, basically this will enable us to design for multiple relevant metrics. So that is one of the key outcomes of this objective. Objective 3 is the final culmination of the first two, that is defining reference business cases where we can test our systems and test different systems in the same business case setting to kind of find product market fits, which kind of system is better suited for which kind of market. We have currently divided into grid connected and off grid. In grid connected, we have onshore, offshore bottom fixed, offshore floating, but basically we are looking into defining a case or a business scenario, case study scenario where we all agree upon that, okay, for airborne wind system, this is what a suitable onshore business case would look like. And we can test, we can benchmark then our own business case evaluations with these reference business cases. And off-grid, we have hybrid power systems, another popular market that airborne wind can play into, power to X, and temporary installations, so disaster relief. So we don't have much information on how to define this, but that's where we are looking into inputs from you. How would you define these business cases? So till now, I talked about the objectives of this effort, and I said that we need your input. So that's why this workshop. And what input do we need from you? So currently we have a technical report which basically details all the three aspects that I just talked about. And we are going to share this with the collaborators, participants of the workshop. But basically, we need your input in terms of cost modeling. So what do we need is your input on what are the main cost drivers for your concept and the modeling method that we have used. Maybe you have some inputs on that and some empirical data from the industry to improve our models, because companies have access to actual cost data, which academics don't have. And I think this will really help us to increase the credibility of the model itself. Then your inputs on how do you define your design metrics, and do you have any special business cases that you target, and how do you define them basically. So after moving from the three objectives and what input do we need from you, so then how do we collect your input? So this is part of initiation of the workshop. And here I'm going to show you the flow chart of the process that we want to employ to collect your input. So first of all, let me tell you about the nomenclature. So on the top right, you see R plus IS, that is I write as report plus individual spreadsheet. And then participants will be anyone who wants to participate. That would be airborne wind energy companies, tether companies, ground station manufacturers, whoever is relevant, universities, academics, researchers, everyone is invited. And for now, for this iteration, the researchers who would be handling this process is me, Rishikesh Joshi, and Filippo Trevisi, who is in the meeting, who will show you more details about the workshop in a few minutes. But basically, what we plan to do is provide to you, now you see on the left, is a copy of a fillable report in a PDF format and an individual spreadsheet. So that is a confidential spreadsheet just for one participant, and which will not be accessed by anyone else. And such separate spreadsheets and copies of reports to each of the participants. Then basically we will ask them to fill data within them. So we have a structure in that we will show you in a couple of slides. And then collect this fill data. Me and Filippo will basically process this individual spreadsheets and the individual reports that you provide. The data is mainly the quantitative data that is more in terms of the cost modeling aspect, and comments we expect more on the design metrics and the reference business cases. So we basically will process the quantitative and qualitative aspects both, where we expect the industry is involved in majority of these aspects, but academics we don't expect to have cost data with them, but they would be more in terms of guiding regarding design metrics and business cases. And then we will actually come out with updated or improved cost functions, statistics of the data that we receive. And now the most important part is that we will update the current report that we have and a code that we are developing in parallel in MATLAB and Python with just the process data. So here we want to stress the point that we would not be sharing the individual spreadsheets at all. So they would directly go in archive with Airborne Wind Europe, so that they won't be shared, and only processed statistical data will be used in the report, so that all the data that the companies indicate us would stay confidential. And then we will share the updated report and the code to the participants of this effort. And another thing which we plan to do is to make the report open source after 2 years. So basically, for the first 2 years, the report will be only accessible, report and the code will only be accessible to the participants. But after 2 years, we want to make it open source. But this is a point of discussion we can get back at the end of the workshop. And I guess you might have some questions regarding this whole process, but I think some of them will be cleared in the demo and else in the question answer or discussion session at the end. But then if you want to participate, how do you participate? Is send an email to the two of us, that is me and Filippo together, that you would want to participate in this effort. And then what to include is basically contact details of the person and their affiliation, the institution, company, or university, or whatever, so that we have a record of who all is participating. And then after that, what will you receive is an email with the report in a fillable PDF format, and an email with access to your individual spreadsheet hosted at TU Delft Microsoft Teams, and which no one else will have access to. only me and Filippo will have access to the spreadsheet at the end, which will be used to process the data and then archive the spreadsheet with Airborne Wind Euro. So I guess this was the process which I showed you, but now we will give you a short demo. Filippo will give you a short demo on how to fill the report and the individual spreadsheet so that you have an idea what do you expect while participating in this workshop. So now I transfer it to Filippo. You can add anything I missed, by the way.
Thank you, Rishi, for the presentation. So I'll take this part. You will be receiving then, we say that 2 emails, one with the reference economic model, so the technical report we developed, and a separate email like similar to this one, in which you were granted access to the individual spreadsheet. Just to stress it again, like to have access to this spreadsheet, we need to add your email in the spreadsheet. So we are the only one who can give access to people to this spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet will look like something like this with the access. So, but let's start from the report, just to having a brief look. So the report look like this. So I'll just scroll down. We have a preface written by Christian and an abstract from us. And here comes a bit the first important thing. It is in a fillable format, so we ask you to add your details while filling it. For instance, I'm adding here mine, and you please add all the details of people actually working on this, so the position and also the emails, so at least we can keep track of who is filling what, and eventually who to reach out for further discussion or detail, or maybe for a follow-up. Let's briefly look at the table of contents. We see it here. We start with an introduction. We will briefly look into this. And then with all the components Rishi just showed in the slides. So a kite part, a tether, ground station, balance of system, balance of plant. And then we have a section related to the design metrics and the case studies, as we just discussed. So we mainly expect companies and industry to comment on this first part, the first section, so from the kite to the balance of plant, and with more quantitative data, but also comments. And we expect maybe researchers or academics also, maybe if they want, of course, they are welcome to comment also on the first part, but maybe to give more inputs on the design metrics and the case studies together also with industry. So let's scroll again down. We see, for instance, here in the introduction, how we proceed. We have a text that is the one we came out with, and you can see that in blue there are some parts, some questions to you, where actually you can answer down in the fillable box. And for instance, here we ask you what we miss to model your concept. Of course, this is the first iteration of this report, so we will not for sure we didn't for sure cover all the aspects, but so we need your inputs and so on. So we can.
Filippo,
yes.
Can you increase the zoom a little bit, because
yes.
it's very small? Yeah,
Sorry.
I think that's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes. And yeah, again in the introduction we listed all the, for instance, relevant literature that we used to develop this model, but also relevant metrics that we use to propose relevant literature that we use to propose the design metrics. But let's look a bit at what is in the core of this workshop, which is a bit how to collect data. So here we have the kite part, and we see that inside the brackets there are some keywords. For instance, here under the bracket, inside the bracket is a kite.structure, and those keywords are the one which will be used to develop the code. So when you will have access to the code, you will have use these keywords to select that part of the cost model. And we see that, for instance, here related to the kite structure, we start with a low fidelity and a medium fidelity cost model. And for instance, this low fidelity has like a mass estimation, mass equation, but most importantly, an equation for the cost. And this cost equation has like two kind of parameters. Two parameters we define this cost, which is the price of the structure and the price of wetted area. And we ask you comments on those values that are the one we propose. And now we see how actually we want to collect those inputs. And we want to collect those inputs sheet. So let's briefly look at this. You will see here that there are different sheets. The first two are related to your input. So like the first is just a README to a bit wrap what we discussed and what we expect from you in this spreadsheet. For instance, here we say that we intend to use this spread. You should be using this spreadsheet in parallel with the report. And here also that we classify the cost into the three different developing costs. So one prototyping, series production, and mass production. So you will see that you can indicate what your inputs are related to. So your inputs could be related to prototyping cost or series or mass production. And we have also a color code and so on for other details. Then you can move on to the FILMI, where we ask your detail. For instance, here we ask your company, institution. So for instance, Polimi, that will be for me. And here you can scroll down and see what is your main focus. Of course, if you are not among those lists, you are welcome to add more details here. We ask you also a bit a description of your concept. So for us, it's easier to post-process. So for instance, that would be fixed wing, monoplane, and ground gen, and H-little, for instance. And we ask you also what is the rated power of the system you provide inputs of, and this could be like 100 kilowatt. And please, if you want to provide separate data to us, ask us to create a new spreadsheet, so at least we can separate the inputs and know what your inputs refer to. But then let's look at what is more important, so how to provide the inputs we ask you, and this should be looked at together with the report. So we saw before that we had those cost parameter in section, we see it here, 2.1.1. So we will have this section here. We'll see that is a fixed wing kite. And then we ask detail about this parameter, P structure, for instance, that our current proposal is, the current value we propose is 250 euro per kilowatt. And then what we ask you, zoom a bit again, so you can see, is like a feedback on this F. So just thinking about this equation, if let's say, what is the value of your value related to the one we proposed? So we ask you somehow, still is not a fully quantitative answer, but it's more like qualitative or a range. So you can say that is a good estimate, or if, let's say that you think that this value should be 200, then you would select a lower value of this. Just looking at these equations, so your current value is the current value we propose, and your value is the one actually you think. So we just ask you feedback on the range of F. You also you should a bit indicate what is your estimation related to which kind of a production. So it could be prototyping, series production, mass production, or maybe you don't know. And again, let us know here if you want to give us more comments about these F. Maybe you want to specify something more, or maybe you want to give the precise number you have inside the company. And we also ask you to provide us with a confidence level on the provided input. So at least we know when we process how trust we should put on your number. We hope to have a lot of high confidence level, meaning that the report would be better at the end. And again, also comments on the modeling method. Maybe you don't agree with our proposal of the modeling method and you want to propose something new. So please let us know. Let us know here. And you will see that again for the other components, the procedure is quite the same. So we have different cost parameters, and we ask you the same procedure inputs on the other cost, and just browsing around the other components, so balance of system, balance of plants, you will see that some of those parameters are not modeled. And because we didn't develop those, because we think it's a bit too far in the future, but we wanted to think about the report to welcome also those cost modeling. So here we will not ask you about feedback on the model, because the model is not there, but we'll ask you inputs on what you think this model should be, what are the cost drivers, so a bit more, again, qualitative inputs. And then comes to the design metrics, which I will first look into in the report. So you see, I'm scrolling down the report. We have some modeling, again, some blue text where we ask you inputs, and again, ground station here, and I'll just go down to the design metrics part, where, of course, we ask your inputs. So in the report, you are welcome to give more qualitative discussion and give your thoughts. And while in the spreadsheet, a bit more, straight to the point feedbacks, let's say. And same for the case study. And here we propose some indeed design metrics that we ask you feedbacks on. And also for the case study, we have the same kind of procedure in which we ask you what is like your case study, what you think the case study should be, and if you agree with like some case study we thought about. So that was it for the workshop. I hope it was clear, and I give the back to Rishi the floor, and to conclude, and then we can take questions eventually.
Okay, so I hope you can see my screen. Yes?
Yes,
okay.
We can.
Yes. So yeah, this was the short demo. How would you participate? And then this basically presentation or this meeting is the kickoff meeting for this effort. And to conclude, so what we plan here is the timeline for 2023 is by summer, we want to enroll the participants for this effort. And then by the end of September, we want to collect the field report and the individual spreadsheets back. And so that we have some time to process the data by fall, and then sharing the updated report and code back to the collaborators or the participants in winter. And so, yes, and so we will share the report through Zenodo, which is a repository maintained by CERN, and it will be published with a DOI. So every version of the report will be published like this. So in winter, we will have the first published version of this report. And maybe at some point, we want this process to be repeated by some other people. Hence, we want to set this framework. And we can use the same repository to publish different versions of the report, which are updated on top of each other. And yes, as I told you, we want to make each published version of the report open source after 2 years of its publication. So this report for now will be only accessible to collaborators, to participants, but after 2 years to everybody. And then we are in discussion of saying, okay, now we want to promote or facilitate development of the technology. And then maybe we want to share the report with the new companies who are forming up to help them kick off. This is a point of discussion. And another point of discussion is anonymity in the report. So we would be really happy to actually mention the collaborators, the participants in the report, because it adds credibility to the report and it also gives recognition to the participants. So I guess, but it's again a point of discussion if participants wants to not be named in the collaborator list in the report. And these are the main points, but we are open for questions, if any, regarding the process or anything. And another point is we can also have small brainstorming or group discussion sessions like this for particular aspects. If people feel comfortable to talk more or give more data like this, I think we can also do that, and that might be faster. Maybe we come together for discussing design metrics like this. It can happen. So your views on that, and yeah, Filippo, if I missed anything, you can add. Otherwise, the floor is open for questions. Yes, Christian.
Maybe to start to break the ice. Question on this report open after 2 years. What is the reason to have it for 2 years basically covered, or would there be, would you, especially when we want to give input to like IRENA reports or IEA reports, would that be available earlier, or how would you deal with that?
Do you want to take Filippo?
It's the same. The main idea is to give it to participants, to collaborators first, to push them to collaborate with us, because we feel that if we just make it open source, then we won't have anything back from collaborators. And I'm sure that the idea is also to make it open to academics. So I guess IRENA and other institutions will fall into somehow the people, like it's the institution we want to give it access to, even before the 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
So I guess everyone is ready. I guess everyone is ready to enroll, maybe.
Yeah, please give comments or just reactions. What do you think about the model?
Hello both. So I think it's really great that we can actually have this research done. I think it was beneficial for all of us. And I think we're happy to contribute. Of course, the confidentiality, of course, is something that's important for us. But I think the overall generic model, basically, that we can use and actually to promote our industry in the market, similar actually that wind energy can actually do, I think would be very beneficial. So happy to contribute, and I think this is really beneficial to all of us. So I hope many of us are able to contribute here.
Thank you so much for saying that already. Yeah.
Yes, Jan?
Yeah, thank you. This is excellent work. It's really good. We've done work on this, but to have this together, the whole industry is, of course, very important. But I also think that confidentiality on the individual spreadsheets, it's fine to have, but to share, well, when we receive, the collaborators receive, I guess it's open to share, although it's not open source, even before 2 years, because it's of course important to share this.
Yes, so I guess what we meant is definitely we will share this initially to the participants or the collaborators of the report itself, because we like, otherwise there is a chance of some companies, not just companies, anyone who might free ride in the initial phase, where and we want more collaboration to facilitate more collaboration. I think there's a separate, okay, we will share, but initially only to the collaborators, and then to maybe after 2 years anyway, there is a need of a second version of the report anyway, and that's why the first version can go out. So maybe I misunderstood your question.
Yeah, maybe my question is if when we receive the report, if we can share with our contacts. That's important for us to be able to.
I don't see a problem in that, where like if it's benefiting the company, if it's benefiting the community, that's what we want. Yeah, I'm definitely, I think that, right, Filippo, if you want to, I mean, this is basically the objective of this.
Yeah, so the objective of this discussion. So we will be the one actually writing in there's another repository the condition to access it, and also to like somehow the condition to share it. So yes, we think this could be a good point. Of course, like, it's also going against you with people who didn't contribute, and they could have contributed, because then like the report is not as nice as it could have been. So I think it's also in your interest and not to share it with people that could have made it better somehow. So that's the idea behind. So of course, like probably if you have the PDF at one point and you will be able to share it, no one will can keep track of that. So and yeah, that's my thought at least.
Filippo, no, I think Rishi, can you unshare the screen? Then we can better see the people.
Yes.
Thanks.
I think for me, it's really an opportunity for Kaipar to actually get more research done for us to motivate our business plans and our growth plans towards external stakeholders. So I see this actually as great input for our own business plan. If we motivate towards shareholders, potential investors, potential partners, to really kind of talk about the market and the market potential. And I think actually it's great actually that of course that will be, I think the interpretation of this data and the use of the model for every company will be individual, right? So we'll all have our own plans, but basically to reference a common model, I think will be very, very beneficial because it becomes more trustworthy. And there will be publications on this model, right? So actually then we're referencing something that is actually a known benchmark in the market rather than we are just kind of making stuff up ourselves. So I think that's where I see the main benefit for us. But our business plan, of course, will be our own. But we're referencing a model basically that will be commonly shared, and that's adding to the trustworthiness of this.
Yeah, you summarized it perfectly, I think. Yeah, I think Gonzalo has a comment also similar to what I think Jon was saying, that if someone would want to have access, he or she will have access. Yes, but this collaborator I meant is in this initial phase of collecting this first iteration of collecting data, processing, updating the report. So these collaborators will have access for this version so instantly.
And I guess the threshold is quite low to give input, I guess, no? So
yeah,
someone can ask for getting access and providing input and just giving us a few comments. That would probably, well, better than nothing, let's say.
Not too few.
Not too few, exactly. So we should really, in every time that someone wants to have access or we want to give someone access, make sure that they really are also giving input and making sure that they understand it, that it's really a two-way street here that we're talking. I think this is what we should all try, and let's see how well it works. But the more people we force people to give input, the better it will be.
I guess that's for every model, right? I think if we have great input, then actually the model will be better. And actually we will have something that's less fantasy and more sci-fi. So the future will happen rather than this is a future that's never going to happen. So I think there's really a lot of benefit for us actually to provide good input to actually have an accurate model.
I think there's Eric.
Oh yeah, good morning. You talked about sharing a report, but we also are mentioning a model. Is the intent to share the model and some sort of a report?
So if you mean the code, yes. So for now, we're planning to publish both code and the report. Okay. And it will most likely be in both MATLAB and Python, or at least in one.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess the public question versus the private question, it might be easier to understand feelings on that if the content of that report, were known and fleshed out a little more in terms of like outline or what it would really look like in the report. Right now, it's report. I don't know that it's clear what would be published. I can imagine there being maybe a form that would be agreed to that would be publicly released sooner, maybe to everyone, summaries or this kind of thing too. And so I'd maybe leave the possibility, the idea open of agreeing to more liberal distribution after we see what we're talking about specifically.
this is a good point that we did not have a detailed discussion about. I think what you mentioned is to have a version of the report which can be openly published with some summaries or some data or some guideline or some output, right?
Yeah, yes, you got my point. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Eric, if you could lower your hand. Thanks. And then we have Rolf.
Yeah, Rolf from TwinTech. So first of all, also I think a very great initiative, and definitely want to support that. And I think it's good for the community if we have a bit of common understanding on the economics. My question is just you will then collect feedback from different parties. Will then the model be kind of a fit on these into these data, or for sure there will be quite a variability? Let's say if we talk about costs, for instance, if you have like cost per kilogram, let's say from the airborne part, it might be also quite different whether there is, let's say, a VTOL system involved or not, because in the end you have total mass, but quite different components. And just want to better understand, let's say, how detailed that model will be, and like how do you will handle the variety of, or the let's say the spreading of the data.
That's a good question. Thanks. I think it will come after the post process mainly because once we'll see actually the data that we collect, then we will actually understand which kind of splits we need more in the report, because now we came with a proposal that the cost model should be as general as possible, so should be valid for both soft wing, rigid wing. Of course, there are many splits in the model itself, where we can split. When we can keep the same framework, we kept it. But of course, then there will be some splits necessary, and I think here is where actually we ask your inputs. When we collect somehow your inputs and we see large discrepancies, then is where actually we create some branches of the model. That's at least the idea we want to follow. And yeah, I hope I answered.
Yep, thanks.
And we think about this code and this model as kind of preliminary, so we don't want to go too much in detail as it is done for conventional wind, because it's not. I mean, we want to understand the main things at this stage of development. So we'll not really go into too much detail. You will see in the report of sub components, but just having a first order scaling laws, at least to understand how the technology scale, let's say.
Any other questions or comments? Sure, if you want to ask further, raising the hands who would already who will be willing to participate, but let's hope that all of you will ask for access to it and give some input. But yeah, any other comments, especially on the methodology or on the approach, so that we are not running in the wrong direction here, but so far it seems okay. Yeah, no one wants to comment anymore. I'm not sure. Filippo or Rishi, are you fine?
Yeah, I think we touched the main points.
Again, to show the screen maybe, that yeah, if you want to participate, to send both of us an email, and then with the contact details of the one person or multiple persons that you want to have access of the same spreadsheet. So basically, one participant is not one person, but one participant is one institution or a company or a group, let's say. So you can have multiple people from the same participant, and we can give access to all of them. And then yeah, basically you will expect these 2 emails and much more. Let's say we both will be very much approachable So any doubts, any queries? Yeah.
Is there any kind of
All right.
deadline?
Kind of. So we, at least this is our expectation of the deadlines, that by summer, end of summer, or also within the summer, we want to start collecting field reports and individual spreadsheets. And by the end of September, we kind of want to close off so that we can start processing the data.
So I suggest that you, right after this call, you enroll, then you have done it basically, and then filling out as soon as you can. The earlier the better, because then the team can also see what's going wrong, or where they already receive comments where something doesn't work and they can improve the model. So yeah, the earlier you can start, ideally now in July, the better it would be.
I think one important thing maybe I should have also mentioned is we have many airborne wind energy companies, and they have many suppliers or contacts in terms of ground station or tether. And we also, if you could extend this invitation to them, would be really nice. Or maybe you give us their contact details, we explain them this effort, and they can give us some ballpark inputs as well if they don't want to give very precise inputs, because yeah, they're suppliers, they won't do that maybe. But if you could share your contacts with us, we can approach them.
We can
because
share
we're
the
recording
recordings.
this
Yeah.
session exactly and the presentation, so that they know what we are.
By the way, this is something where I'd like to comment on. For this mega-OR project, we still have to provide a short, well, not really a full report, but some transparency about the supply chain of airborne wind energy systems. And we wanted to contact the members and maybe the wider community to tell us with which suppliers you are already collaborating, and where they and you would be willing to share the names, so that we can show a little bit the industry and the supply chain where we are. So if you have, I saw now here DNF in the call, so companies like that who are willing to show and say we are working with the airborne wind energy industry, and you as or the technology developers who are willing to share their contacts, we wanted to get this information. Well, not so much the information, but just the company name, basically, so that we can show with how big we already are. And I think that will be important. So we can probably do here some cross. You think about the suppliers you would involve, and then we can maybe simplify this effort here as well. So we'll get an email on that as well. So indeed, the more we get into this process, the more companies and organizations, the better it will be.
Can you send us an email with what we have to do by when? Like, that would be great. Like, with your email contacts and stuff.
Yes, we will send a follow-up email to all the workshop participants with basically what you have to do. Yeah, we'll do that.
Thanks.
I think we can include then also the link to the recording, and
yes,
if you have then also your presentation, can also put this in.
You should have our confirmation to join the research in your inbox right now, Filippo, Rishi.
Cool.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, then I would thank everybody again for participating. I'm very happy to see more than 30 participants. And thanks a lot to Rishi and Filippo for this initiative. We really look forward to this. As I said in the beginning, and as we also heard now, everybody thinks it's very useful. So yeah, looking forward to this initiative and the outcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Okay. Have a nice
Yep.
day. Thank you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
We can maybe stop the recording and.
Yeah. There's nothing else to discuss, right? So we are kind of
Yes. Yeah.
fine. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.